Bloodalcohol by Michael Botur. Read by the author. A South Island road trip turns murderous as alcoholic drifter Tracey bullies her lover, the giant Adam, into killing for the ultimate drink, child blood, while Adam fights to keep a secret, his young son. Bloodalcohol. 1. Motueka. Smiling apple postcard, smiling apple pickers. If you dicks won't let me party, then fuck this place! The bony tornado biffed her wine bottle at the counsellor and knocked her folding chair over. Everyone in the hall went silent. Oh, by the way, this party sucks. All that force was packed into a tiny body in a skimpy singlet. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She was a quarter of my size and she was completely in charge. Her rage out happened in the First Presbyterian, Main Street, Motueka, 30 minutes into one of the AA meetings that probation made us go to every week. We were sweaty and agitated, peeling and unpeeling our name tag stickers, trying not to think about tangy beer and party ice. It was January, hottest month of the year, hottest end of the South Island. The sun was pressing on all sides and the room was punishing us for being desperate alkies. This chick was the only one with the guts to actually pull a bottle from her handbag, which is what had got her told off by the counsellor. "Who's coming with me for an actual party?" the angry little woman bellowed, kicking her way to the exit, pausing to sneer at the sticker on my chest reading, "Hi, my name is Big Adam, and I am an alcoholic." She chucked her handbag on her shoulder and stormed out. Didn't even get her attendance sheet signed. Leader of the resistance for real. She had one foot still inside the church hall when she spotted me and spoke at me, and she pretty much adopted my giant ass. "You're coming, eh, big boy? You don't want these boring fucks slowing your shit down." Now, I'm a fairly solid unit, 6'6", 130 kilos, and I could have wrapped her in a bear hug, hauled her back in. Instead, grabbed my keys and followed her out to the parking lot. Crazy little white girl was going to have a fast life. I wanted to protect her, and maybe have me an adventure too. She fetched this black convertible from the parking lot, and she screeched to a stop, 1 foot in front of me. I squeezed in, finding a place for my big python arms, seatbelt battling to get across my belly. The wild woman got me to hold the wheel while she gulped shots of Jim Beam from the bottle, me shaking my head and laughing. Jeez, man. If probation finds out that I skipped AA, I'm in so much shit. "So," she went, hooning through an orange light, "stay ahead of the haters, Big Adam." We cruised past professional-looking wankers on the veranda of a swank restaurant enjoying a single Golden Bay Chardonnay each. Up ahead, the Vicar of Liquor sign arose. I'd never seen anyone use a trolley at a liquor store before, or seen anyone pack the car boot with $400 worth of piss and drive back to Happy Apple Campground, the rear axle sagging, slowing for speed bumps. And I definitely never seen anybody hand out free bottles of Woodstock to a grateful mob like Santa Claus, but that was us. A year in hell was starting with a woman whose name tag said, "Hi, my name is Tracey, and I am an alcoholic." They should have slapped a second sticker on her. "And I'm about to soak your life in booze and blood." So, the reason I was up Motueka ways was I was trying to give some space to Carla the ex and Wallace, my boy. Well, I'd been ordered to give them space, actually. Each day at the orchard that January, I'd pluck around 30 apple trees, I'd get the fruit down, not chucking it too hard so that the soup wouldn't dock my pay. I'd get a sweat up during the day, I'd come down feeling less fat, feeling appreciated when the bosses came round to collect our bins. Tracey started staying at the campground too, and we would all cool down each night after work with a smoke and a box of Canadian clubs, and there would be crazy Tracey, shit-faced, dancing on tables, mishearing people, starting fights with that retarded laugh. Life of the party, mate. If we filled 100 two-ton bins per week together, everybody got paid pretty decent money. Well, paid more than being a Southland sign writer at any rate. Plus it was less stressy, like I could stand up amongst the shining leaves, I could toke, I could sip liquor, I could eat decent apples, I could rock out to tunes. I was spending the season in Motueka figuring out how to get my train back on the tracks because my baby mama and her nan had got a protection order, meaning I wasn't allowed down south in Invercargill, else I would get in trouble. It was supposedly about my car crash on Christmas Eve, rolling the Holden while I was liquored up, injuring Carla, endangering our son and shit, but truth be told, her family had wanted me gone before the crash anyway because of my drinking. They wanted me dead if possible. After the crash, Uncle Widdermoo had pulled me into the hospital cafe and poured out my flask into a trash can, and he'd told me either I had to leave town or he was going to get the road knights to kneecap me. It didn't matter that I had paid for a decent house, paid for 3-ply toilet paper, a heated towel rail, automatic door opener so that Carla could cram the garage with Wally's basketballs and skipping ropes and whatnot. Uncle Widdermoo emailed me a bus ticket from his phone and told me to go before sundown, and that was us. House given to Carla, and me sent away to the naughty north end of the island with no one to love me. Well, except Tracey, that was. So this Tracey chick, she was a leader in the campground because of two things I found out. Rage and riches. As in, Tracey pays for everyone's piss to buy influence, and anyone that wasn't on the Tracey train got a growling. Didn't matter how staunch. Team leaders, noise control, Samoan chiefs, prickly mobsters, stabby skinheads. She mentioned a couple of times when we were on a sandbar in the middle of the booze ocean, mentioned that after she had partied her way through Happy Apple, she had a plan to go on the epicest South Island road trip in history, and I should totally come with. If I helped her out, I would get free piss, parties, pills, and someone to occasionally hug. Seemed like a sweet deal. Maybe I'd even walk away with a bit of coin to buy Wallace some decent prezzies. Maybe Carla would respect me again and drop the protection order. The Tracey tap, campground people called her, the Tracey tap because alcohol flowed from her and peeps were itching for a drink between paydays. The Tracey tap had an account at Vicar of Liquor, thanks to this allowance from some old father who people said they had seen visiting her, gripping her over in the woods or something. Yeah, apparently gripping her. And twice a week, what she'd do is she'd fetch a trunkload of Cody's and Cruisers and Steiny Stella and Smirnoff, giving her enough power to be loose with anyone, grabbing smokes out of Samoan chiefs' mouths, aggravating the Israelis, cussing out the campground manager, taking the Indians' chicken from their barbecue. She gave more than she took, which is why she narrowly avoided getting smashed over. Tracey would use Daddy's dollars to put on these happy apple parties, and every cunt would come, mate. Big fuck-off rental sound system, people moshing in the swamp, bonfire, pig on a spit, doof, 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 backpackers and islanders shaking their dreadlocks. Tracey made those broke-ass summer nights slide by, did she what? End of Feb, we had the party to end all parties. Peeps was celebrating filling our 500th bin of the season, and we had started on the piss and the pills and the pipes just after lunch, so by dinner time most people were fairly sozzled, and when it actually got dark, people started combering out. Around 11 or so, Tracey was dancing on the roof of this Mustang belonging to these mongrel mobsters who we mostly hadn't had a problem with, two old blokes and a 19-ish grandson, winner of some amateur MMA kickboxing title, who wore his thick gold belt around the campground to psych people out. They told Trace to get the fuck off their ride, and Tracey laughed right into their Ray-Bans. You soft cocks don't have the balls to smack a woman. Oh, and then she hopped down and she was disappearing while the gangsters muttered about revenge, while they loaded a sawn off with a red bandana wrapped around it, while Kickboxer Boy pulled me aside and asked me if I wanted a one out, telling me as I walked away that I was a pussy for letting my missus represent. God, it was an epic night that. A lot of wild behaviour, but the fire had winked out by 4 a.m. and everyone was sleeping. Well, everyone except Tracey and me, that was. I was taking a piss under the full moon when I looked up, and there she was, in the trees, her legs wrapped around a bough, perched, plotting. She glided down while I frantically zipped up my cock, gave me a look that said, "I want you inside me." "Hurry up," she went, tugging me towards her tent. After she bit my neck and I came, we pulled our undies on and Trace became all business. She stuck a spear-tipped finger under my chin, kaleidoscope eyes and swirling gold. "Come, get mama something to eat." My nervous balls floated up into my throat as I followed Trace through the moonlit blue campground, prowling between caravans, arriving at the Mustang. Fuck. 10 of the mongrel mobs. All 3 of them were packed in there like possums, wearing their sunglasses as they snored. We could hear a weed whacker revving in one granddad's throat. The other one was mumbling. Kickboxer boy hugged his gold belt like a teddy bear. Their boots stuck out the end of the tent. Tracey hefted a thick block into my arms. I was too woozy to make it out. A car engine? Something like that? A cinder block? Crush the cunt! Tracey had given me a 36-pack of beer bottles wrapped in plastic, so heavy that I swooned a little. "Tracey, what the fuck?" "Oi! Crush his fucking head or I will crush yours," she told me. The box had to weigh nearly 20 kilos. It had pointy cardboard corners. It could pop a man's eye out. I tried to peer through the tent fabric at where the guys' heads were. I saw the shape of a man's face, one of the grandfathers. No helmet. I gave Tracey a look that said, "I seriously don't want to do this." And she met me with golden, swirling eyes. She lifted my arms for me, slammed the box on his watermelon skull. The tent jerked and shivered. Something oily oozed through the nylon into the blue-black grass. "Move, I'll show you how it's done." Tracey hefted a cinder block that the mongrels had used to hold down the lid of their ice chest. She dropped it on the head of the second man. Wet crunch, like a dropped tray of eggs. Tracey moved around the front of the tent next, unzipped the opening. She kneeled on the shoulders of the youngster, Mr. Kickboxer, strangled him in his sleep while he pawed her with useless seal flippers, puke oozing out his nostrils. Tracey emerged from the tent, panting. "Take their shit, come on." "Hey? Do you want to end up like him, Adam?" I tried to swallow. I felt Tracey sticking sharpness into my throat. The campground was silent as ice. I took their wallets, took their money rolls. Tracey stole their weed, their booze, their tobacco. She towed their shotgun with a smirk, tipping it over like it was a useless hunk of scrap. We didn't talk. We'd both ripped off people before. Stamps. Stamps tucked in wallets. That was what I really cared about. I pulled those wallets inside out. Managed to score me 3 postage stamps. That meant 3 postcards home to my son. I wasn't allowed to ring or visit, but there was no law against sending postcards to my boy. I moved meters away, calling her name, desperate to disappear. But Trace had one last thing to do. Kickboxer boy wasn't fully dead, just spasming, quivering. She straddled his chest like she was riding him. Tracey leaned in. I watched, my arms full of loot. Tracey was giving him mouth to mouth, it looked like. And then she tossed her head back, her lips towards the moon. Tracey had grown a black beard. No, she had puked tar all down her throat. No, she had slurped out of the crushed kid's jaw, and she was chewing like it was thick and syrupy. "Tastes good when they're little." She wobbled upright, licking her lips, waiting to see if I would scream. Right hand, fingertips dripping. Left hand holding the golden belt. We loaded her convertible, spun it around, hooned out the gate, and vanished. 2. Westport. Postcards of pancake rocks, cold rocks, gold panning pebbles, hardness hair. Screeching south through Nelson with a storm behind us, we picked up a bag of crank from the Hells Angels, a bootload of Jack Daniels from the piss shop, we picked up juice, we picked up gin, chips, ciggies, condoms, vape cartridges, an ounce, and finally we limped over the mountains, hit the Buller River, and aimed for Westport. I was the only one well enough to drive. Tracey looked pretty rough in the passenger seat. There were no sorrows or anything. She didn't talk like she had bad feelings about sucking the juice out of that guy last night. It was amazing that she did that, actually. And now, with daylight on her, Trace looked like a bundle of bony shoulders and elbows with a brown wig on top. A lot of gut pain, and she clutched her knees and stomach like there was a baby kitten in her lap that she didn't want to let go. She sweared at the G-forces every time we went hard around a bend. And she sucked away a bottle of Bacardi, and she had a smoke and got her glow on and felt a little better. At a fish-smelling store with an anchor on the deck and a lifebuoy ring, I chose a postcard with black and white coal miners on it. I etched a message to my little Wally, telling him I was still Dad. Still here for him. Just taking a little time out, that's all, son. I hope your mum lets you watch the NBA playoffs, champ. Hey, maybe we can catch the finals together sometime, mate. Denver Nuggets, right? I wrote his address, neater than I'd ever written anything. It didn't matter if Wally couldn't read the card, or if his mum binned it, or if Nan narked to the cops. It didn't matter if my words were lame and spelled wrong. You send your kids something handwritten now and again. That's what daddies do. Even daddies that flunked out of school at 15. Trace saw me hunched over the car roof, and she asked who I was writing to. I lied, told her I was trying to butter up Carla, the ex, and Tracey swallowed it. I didn't know how long I could lie to her and not admit that I had a son, though. 90 minutes later, we passed the route to Cape Foulwind and then veered up a rocky driveway and finally braked. Faded villa on a cliff, like a bunch of old settler cottages joined together with balustrades and window shutters and shit. There were vicious white waves below. It was the estate where Tracey grew up. Haunted looking now, with a rusted tractor in the tall grass, waist-high weeds, and mountains of wet firewood. On the drive here, Tracey had finally explained where her pocket money came from. Graham, her dad, you see, had used to run West Hill Meats, and he had made mad stacks. And he had got Tracey's mum pregnant when he was 50, and he had retired, and he had bought a lot of the shops on the West Coast throughout his 60s, and he had put away a fuck ton of savings by 70. Tracey, who was 29 now, had been born to a pretty old dad in 1994. And this Graham was a hard ass, apparently, which isn't a crime, but the prick was a bit too handsy, it sounded like. The old fuck had spent the last 3 decades chasing chicks up and down the coast, sucking women dry like little bags of yogurt, leaving his girl to have a stink time at boarding school at Westport College, so she found friends and crystal and ecstasy and poker runs and mosh pits. She didn't graduate, didn't start a career or any successful shit, but Daddy's girl was always welcome back at the homestead. That was the thing. Graham sounded mad possessive, but he had the bucks to bail her out of trouble. As we got out of the car, old Graham came around from the shed wiping oil off his fingers. He had the same boniness as his daughter, the same obsidian eyes, hollow-chested little fuck, bushy white beard, dressed like he was lost in time, wearing a necktie and a vest and suit pants and boots. Looming over, I reckon I could have swatted the 50-kilo fogey like a fly, except he had a force field around him, or something like a force field. Gravitas, I think they call it. As if his bones were made of magnets. Graham tried to wrap his arms around his daughter, and she squirmed out of the hug. I stuck my hand out to be the bigger man. Shake first. I'm Adam, bro, I said to him. There was a beat of awkward silence. Adam, like the first man or whatever? You ain't her first, Graham sneered. He looked over my bulk, head to toe, stroking his beard as he considered why the fuck Tracey kept such a big bastard on board. What are you doing with me daughter, if you don't mind me asking? She's treading water in an ocean of intoxicants like me, bro. We're waiting to get washed back onto land. I help her spend the allowance that you try to control her with, Graham. And I help her drink. That's what I do. We're just supporting each other, I guess. Just trying to cut down on our drinking, eh? I lied to the old fuck. He stopped asking questions a couple of minutes later. It started drizzling, so he disappeared through the tall grass back to his workshop. Could have sworn just before he pulled the shed doors closed. Could have sworn I saw him bending a crayfish pot without a welding torch. We moved our belongings and booze into a bedroom. Then Tracey took us for a stroll around the estate. Overgrown orchards, stinky stables, mossy greenhouse, grass up to our thighs, and salt encrusted on everything, spraying off the ocean. At the bottom of the property, where the rocks were covered with seals and it stank of salty armpits, we watched the Tasman Sea shatter against the land. I kept scanning my body, trying to listen to my blood to see if anything was different about me since she'd shagged and bitten me, but apart from craving a few Jack and Cokes, I wasn't polluted or transformed or nothing. Whatever Tracey does to people is not contagious then, I guessed. All she does is drink. I'm going to have a few mates around at 8:30, Tracey said, finishing a text. Old school peeps. I'm going to have us a party. What kind of party are we talking? I asked her. You haven't done poly before, I'm guessing. She pulled the hip flask down from my lips. She beamed me into her eyes. Swinging. Orgies. Tell them that youngsters are welcome. Kids can run around. Kids can explore the basement or whatever. It's all good. We've got space down there. I squeezed Tracey's bony little shoulder. Are you bipolar or something, Trace? What the actual fuck? No kids, man. Keep them separate from our dirty, grown-up, careers or whatever the word is. Jesus Christ, girl. Okay, whatevs. No kids then. She mushed my baby fat and then pushed my face back into the stink wind, smirking, like she was going to try and find a way around the no kids rule. Hey, maybe stay on the sidelines tonight, Adsy boy, she told me. We had supper at Graham's historic-ass dining table. There were goblets, silverware, candlesticks, local crayfish, steaks from the freezer. Tracey shifted and squirmed as Graham caught up on her news and tried to say something about how Tracey's body was coming into itself like your mother's. Ugh, it was epic cringe. The conversation would have been unbearable if we weren't stoned. We all knew anything had set Tetchy Tracey off, and then she wouldn't talk to her dad until she needed more money. So what we did was we got secretly shit-faced on Chablis while old Graham muttered about wanting something stronger to drink. I made small talk about the Rugby World Cup while Graham stared at Tracey, eating his daughter with his eyes. I asked the old man what team he supported, and he reckoned Hungary, which seemed weird because they were like the 20th shittiest nation in the Rugby World Cup. He reckoned that his grandparents came over here to coal mine in the 1860s or some shit. The maths sounded a bit off. I would have thought grandparents would only get you out to the 1930s or so, unless he lived to 150 or something. I couldn't work out how old the bro was, and I didn't want to admit that I was pretty shit at math, so I nommed my crayfish, stuffing my face with buttered rolls. When he got fed up, with Tracey ducking his gaze, Graham's eyes turned sour and he said, Tell me, since the last time I saw you, have you done anything with your life, or do you continue to be as disappointing as your mother? He carried the dishes to the kitchen, his ears cocked for Tracey's comeback. Jesus Christ, what a prick. How could anyone talk to their daughter like that? Tracey ate her rage, though. She played with her phone, frantically texting swingers for tonight's party. After she had invited a couple of dozen peeps, Tracey necked the last half bottle of champs and roared, What I'm doing with my so-called life, Dad, is I'm having mates over tonight. Dad, so stay the fuck away from us. I did the world's most awkward washing up with her old man after, and then potted around till 7:45, looking at dusty family photos, a coat of arms, a stag's head. I'd never been in a historic mansion before, so I pulled books out of the bookcase, but No secret staircases open up or nothing. I wiped the breakfast bar, I had a smoke, I put pretzels and ashtrays out and some paper towels, white towels in there for people to wipe up their cum and their lube until just before 8, the first trucks rumbled up the driveway and Tracey appeared, unlatching the front door. I was excited. I was pacing, rubbing powder into my gums to smooth out my moods. Big like me, I'd hardly ever shagged anybody, which is half the reason I was saying yes to just about all of Tracey's wild impulses. Because we had like an open relationship or something. And I didn't want to rock the boat by putting a name on what we had. The first peeps came in. They were a pair of manly, freckled married chicks wearing decent enough skirts but still with gumboots because of the coastal mud. They kicked their boots off at the door, and a couple of electrician-looking cunts arrived behind. Veterinarian, farmers, truck drivers, like a whole layer of Tracey's high school, and everyone started gossing and cracking bottles and putting gifts of seafood on the breakfast bar, smoked eels and buckets of mussels and ice cream containers stuffed with whitebait. I got pushed to the back of the in crowd, the Tracey crowd, and she kissed a million cheeks and squeezed the arms of mulleted farm boys, and she opened a teeny-weeny little glad bag and popped what looked like a breath mint into each guest's mouth, and I let the tide push me back into the kitchen as about 30 people packed the place. It began with folks in the lounge playing a dirty icebreaker game on their phones, tooting on their pipes, and there were a few joints too, and one of the farm boys handed round these blue boner pills, and after an hour of flirty stiffness and high school catch-ups, people got their tongues out. Tracey seemed to go for the youngest chick, this milk-skinned 16-year-old ginger, and Trace patched her so hard that their lips wouldn't separate, and Tracey's claws were in her, and then a second chick joined the tryst, and the farm boys pulled their singlets over their heads, and damn dog, the swinging was underway, people pashing in the stiff leather antique armchairs, 2s and 3s of people hooking up on the giant couch, a couple doing it on a rocking chair, folks grinding on the rug in front of the fireplace. Me? I stood behind the breakfast bar, paralysed, hating my big clumsy body. The only human who came near me was the old man. God, that fucking Graham, wearing a damn bathrobe, pretending that he had just come downstairs to mix a martini. It was obvious that he wanted some party action. The dude was almost drooling, although the thought of the skeletal bastard getting naked near Tracey was heinous. I'd noticed the way that he had eyeballed Trace at the table like she was a juicy steak. There was hardly any time to tell him to piss off back upstairs, because the first people to blow their load came out to the breakfast bar panting, calling me bartender, and told me to fix them drinks. Next was dancing on the tables and Trace putting her face in girls' legs and karaoke on someone's phone and bloody handprints on the walls and people copying Tracey, scratching backs and nibbling the skin under their fingernails and people's necks turning purple with hickeys, and even a few of the lads pashing as everybody snorted crank. People slipped on bottles, the ashtrays overflowed, and people stepped on stray condoms, and the chairs and the couch went shiny with sweat, and the windows clouded with wet heat. And there was me, clutching 3 bottles in 2 hands and rummaging through the tip-top and venison and mutton and the chest freezer and the pantry to chip out ice. Some dude got a bloody nose from Tracey and she sucked his face, and then she stuck a glass under his nostrils and mixed blood into a glass of rum, and this was the only time she minded me. She made me drink it, rubbing my throat. Tracey had a taste of everyone, though nobody tasted Trace. "Can I?" my eyes asked Tracey as she passed by in an acid shuffle. Should I drink you?" Tracey heard my thoughts. She smiled and shook her head. Child. The old man emerged from the tornado of people, shunted to the edge because no one wanted him. I hated to think what the old predator would do if he got his lips on some poor lady. I saw him try to come up behind one girl and kiss her on the neck, and a farmer swatted him away and tugged the girl deep into the orgy. Another chick was chilling out on the couch, her groggy eyes open, and old Graham stood over her, lasering into her eyes for a full solid minute before someone butted in and claimed her, telling the old man he's going to get a hiding if he didn't fuck off. The blokes left first, mostly, having some beers on the steps before driving their Ford Utes and Hiluxes through the midnight drizzle. One of them crashing into the woodpile, another getting stuck in the mud for a bit. The not-so-hot ladies left next, and last were the skinny ones, the little teens, the youngest girls. Tracey stopped them from going for as long as possible, running her claws down their spines as they got off. When she was done, the party was done. People were all fucked out and smoked out and coked out and beginning to snore in their underwear. Me, I fell into a sleep, and I assumed everyone else did too. My big, hungry body woke me at 4 or 4:30. Needed a feed. I groped my way around the house, swearing when the floorboards creaked, bumping into old furniture. I found the pantry, thinking about scoring some of the ice cream that I'd spotted earlier, because the freezer was inside the pantry. Inside, I heard snorting. I heard lips smacking skin. I heard saliva. I flipped the light on and pulled the pantry door open. The old cunt and his daughter were in an embrace, or he'd clutched her, and she was scared to move, more like. Old man's lips were on her neck. Black blood was pooling in her collar. Hot, clear droplets burning a path down Tracey's cheeks, caught in a waking nightmare. Soon as he sensed me approach, his eyes became yellow cat slits. The old man crouched, dragging Tracey down with him like he was trying to pull a mouse into a hole. The fuck up again? My heart waited for me to say something stronger. Don't curse her like that, bro. What the hell? How long has he been doing this to you, Trace? He has to, Tracey said from deep in her trance. He has to keep living. More years. Bugger off, the old man growled, his jaws locked on his daughter's neck. His lips were spattered with ink, his teeth grey. I need a feed. I broke out of my shock, yanked Tracey to safety, wrapping a python around her while she scratched at the weeping punctures on her throat. Bring your little friends back, Graham rasped, stooping low as a spider. Bring me the young. I'd never seen Tracey frightened, but her eyes, bro, iced over. I tackled the sick fuck while he was distracted, ripped the gross old wretch out from his burrow, got my arms between his crotch and his shoulder blades, picked him up like a bundle of dirty laundry, lifted the lid of the freezer and upended him inside, crunching on frozen bread. I looked around for something heavy to hold the lid down. Hey, there's nothing heavier than me, so I sat on top. From inside his box, the old man thumped and whinged. The freezer's sides didn't bulge when he kicked. They were solid steel. Trace, I got this. I sat on that freezer, counting Graham's thumps. Thump, 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 thump. Thump, 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 thump. It went on forever. I sparked up my pipe. I cracked open a little bottle of thick, sticky old cocktail liqueur. It was a good percentage, and I nicked it. Thump, 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 thump. It was a muffled attempt at speech, like the old fellow was underwater. As I got woozy and as I stocked a bundle of coats and scarves behind my back for a pillow, memories of my old man played behind my sleepy eyes. Old man used to come home pissed off from Sunday motorcycle missions with the road nights. The old man used to come up behind my mum in the kitchen and tell her to hurry up with dinner, and he would suck her neck and he would drag her to the bedroom. And the old man used to try to pick fights with me when he sensed I was getting big enough to take him on. Forced me to chuck on sparring pads and to come out to the garage so that he could lay massive hits on me and get all his anger out from club life. Still got to explain that one to little Wally. Still got to explain how come Grandpa was never allowed to come home and visit. But I'll be your granddad, Wall. I'll be your everything, man. I keened an ear and adjusted my butt. It must have been fucking 5 a.m. and I thought about hopping off the freezer and trying to find a hookup with whoever was left. The bumps hadn't happened for a while though, and I knew the prick would bust out of the freezer as soon as I shifted my ass off. I didn't want to hear my woman with somebody else out there. So I swallowed a bunch of morphine tablets, cracked a bottle of cooking sherry, dreamed about my so-called dad feeding on me and sneaking that first bottle of beer from his man cave and dissolving myself down a black, drunken 30-year pipe. Oi, do you think he's okay? Oi, Adam, get your fat ass up. Sunlight steam. Tracey was in the pantry, backlit by a glowing dawn, prodding the freezer, wearing nothing but cold blue skin, her mouth stretched, her lips wobbling, her eyes wet. What? Do I think he's okay? Who's okay? My dad, asshole! I rolled off the freezer lid with my back aching. I picked crumbs out of my eyes. I wanted to enjoy looking at her bod, looking at the daub of darkness between her thighs, except her stare was like a fishhook and I couldn't look away. Trace, how come you suddenly care about him after the shit he done to you? He's mine. Check on him. Beneath the lid, the old man looked like a frozen chicken. Knees tucked up into his chest, elbows in his crotch, hunkered for warmth. Desperate, searching face, frosted white. Tracey sniffled. Just take him out. I want him to go to bed and warm up. I gave Tracey an "Are you fucking serious?" look. Tracey stopped sniffling and her eyes began to glow. Take him up too. All right. As I hauled him out, a chunk of his beard snapped off, carrying his jaw with it. His teeth clattered on the kitchen floor like frozen sweet corn. Chunks of brown, wood-coloured frozen marrow fell out of his shattered jaw. I lugged him up the creaking stairs to the dark top of the house. I kicked in his bedroom door, dumped him into his bed, drew the curtains. Coals winking in the fireplace. He would thaw eventually, but I didn't want to speed it up. I wanted to be out of here. 3 hours later, after we'd packed up all trace that we'd been here, burned the bottle wrappers, burned the glad bags, the napkins, the cum rags, the band-aids and butts, Trace said that she was going to check on her dad. Told me to find one of the old man's suitcases and put all the best shit from the liquor cabinet in it. I sipped a bottle of absinthe. I watched Golden State Warriors versus Boston Celtics on my phone. I texted Carla to ask if she could update Wally on the game and to tell her I'd finished up at Happy Apple and maybe she could let me come for a supervised visit. I dozed off and woke an hour later. I searched a dozen corners of the dusty, dark place. Located her eventually in her dad's bedroom, hunched over, secretive. Found her drinking from her dad's half-thawed neck, the blue-white meat, crunchy with ice crystals and dripping. Tracey was waving in a trance. She was still naked and blue like fucking Gollum, her head yanking backwards, her chin dripping, a shark tearing at tuna. She has to. The voice in my head, half Trace, half Graham. She has to keep living more years. 3. Queenstown. Bought the cheapest postcard. Sorry, Wal. Everything's pricey here, mate. Resorts, jeeps, glinting quartz streets, choppy blue water, big enough to disappear in. Getting the inheritance poured into Tracey's bank account wasn't hard, really. It took a month of her just answering emails, mostly, while we kicked back in hotels wearing silk dressing gowns and watching movies as Tracey sharpened her fangs with a nail file. Tracey told the feds that she had arrived and found her dad, dead in his bed. Advanced dehydration, the coroner ruled later that month. They estimated that Graham had been dead for 4 or 5 weeks by the time we found him. Corpse like cardboard, neck chewed open by rats, apparently. Tracey inherited $933,000. We had old money now. No more sweat, scratches, and sunburn in any orchards. Plus, Tracey paid the family lawyer to get her probation hours written off. We'd still go to AA every few weeks because Trace was struggling to balance what she drank, the sugary stuff and the red stuff, although nobody was forcing us to go to meetings. Nobody was stopping us doing anything. First time in my life, I didn't feel slow and heavy. I paid for everything with hundreds. Tossed the spare change in the back seat of our new Range Rover. Stamps were $1 each, and I fantasized about buying 100,000 postcards so that every day in my son's mailbox down here in Invercargill there could be a handwritten message saying, "Daddy loves you," over and over. We couldn't think if we couldn't drink, and it cost $2,000 on piss per week to keep our buzz. Queenstown party, first snow, sugar in the hills, view outside, Hilton Hotel, tits and tummies and belly button rings against the Bayview windows. The crowd was decent. Even this fella got offered a little action. My eyes were fixed on Trace, though. I could tell that she had focused like a vulture on a vulnerable piece of prey. A girl with 2 nose rings dancing to herself. Tracey tugged my ear onto her tongue, ordered me to pursue the nose ring woman after the party cleared out. I told her I didn't want to. Trace told me she would die if she didn't get a top-up. Told me she would find a drink, one way or the other. She flashed her fangs, and it was obvious what she meant. At 1:28 in the morning, I pulled our Range Rover out of the hotel garage and sped up to Highway 6 and caught up to the nose ring girl. I overtook her Kia Sorrento on the Shotover Bridge, raced ahead, stopped in the dark, blocked the road, hopped out, waved my arm, slowing nose ring down, pretending that my car was stuffed. I got the poor wee thing to hold my flashlight, and then I seized her, wrapped her in tie-down strops until she looked like a mummy, put her in the back of the Range Rover and the nice, deep 200-litre suitcase. I wheeled her up into the hotel, the suitcase bulging and shaking and moaning and scraping my legs. I opened Tracey's room and fed poor nose ring girl to the lion. Closed the door, backed against the wood. There were thuds, there were shrieks, and then a splat, like a rotisserie chicken ripped apart. A low, moaning sob. I took a fetty, a fentanyl, to cool the fire and the guts above my cock. I smiled through a bunch of precious pics from Wally, blocking the door with my bulk. There was a pict of his potato stamp picture, a pict of that Māori pepeha ancestry thing that they make kids do with Matua/Daddy written in capital letters, like my name meant something special. A photo of a crayon-drawn Father's Day card that Carla said she had had sitting around since last year. "You're making progress writing to Wal," she told me. "Not bad for you," she told me over text. "You can have a supervised visit in a few months. You need to earn a bit more credit, though, Adam. Ask me on a good day if you can have a visit, hey? Ask me on a good day." Tracey pulled the hotel door open, and I fell back. She put one foot on my chest, licking her lips. Red was splashed all up her legs and arms and the wall, her chin dripping. "Who you writing to?" Carla," I lied. "Writing to the ex, I know. I'm trying to repair stuff." Her eyes flushed pink, and the lights on the ceiling flickered, and then the darkness passed. "Clean this up." "Clean it? Hell no, it's impossible. Trace, get back here and help. I can't." A suitcase whooshed into the hallway, leaving pink streaks on the carpet. Tracey behind it, pushing, sliding. Leaving me to race to the gas station to buy rope and pliers and bin bags and rubber gloves and bleach spray. Leaving me to work all night so frantic I thought my heart would pop. 4. Southern Alps. No postcard, sorry, dude. But I promise we are coming. Arthur's Pass. The first spray of high country snows. Almost winter. Reds and blues licked the silvery sides of the mountains. Tracey was in the driver's seat. We slowed for the cop, worrying that there might be blood or hairs on the strops in the back seat. The police person sat in his vehicle for ages while we sweated, and finally the cop, a chick, moseyed up to Tracey on the driver's side. She was staunch, but not the staunchest female I knew, though. Not the staunchest by a long shot. The cop, the staunch cop, shone her torch into the car. The beam passed over her sticky fingers and the splotches on her jeans skirt. Tracey's jeans skirt, that was. The bottles of booze in the back seat glinted like they were winking at the cop. Hands up, you caught us. Tracey was going to fail a breath test. We could all smell it. What she had done is she'd sucked down half a bottle of gin to clear her sticky mouth after she'd had a drink of the red stuff earlier in the night. She'd stopped in at an NA meeting in Hokitika before we headed inland and over to the Alps. Tracey had picked up some 16-year-old runaway fisherman who thought he was going to get some hickeys from her. And he did get the hickeys, technically. She bit him a little too hard, though. Bit him all the way through. "You're out late," I said to the cop, trying to do Jedi mind tricks on her, trying to distract her. You know what you ought to do is you ought to cruise home, officer. Don't worry about us." The police officer took my name and radioed police headquarters. We watched the snow change colours under her police lights, red blue on the Alps. She opened a map on her phone, showed me we were just 40 k's north of Kingston, Otago, the border with Southland. We didn't realise how low we'd got. "If I don't arrest you, the next officers will. Go to Southland before your ex lifts a restraining order, and you, my friend, are doing jail time, Mr. Cunningham. Is that clear?" "You're holding us up," Tracey growled, switching the engine on. "Hold your horses, driver. There's a particular car we're needing to find. Looking for a late model Kia Sorento Reggio HEE 454, dark blue colour. It's a rental. It disappeared 8 days ago between Queenstown and Wanaka. Searching the shot over river. We are wondering if she's pushed her car off the bridge and hitchhiked up this way. Yulia Barker is her name. She's 22. Distinctive nose ring?" Nose ring, girl. The one that Tracey drank her through the suitcase like a juice box. "You come across anyone like that on your journey?" the police officer asked us. "She was delicious," Tracey said. Oh my God, Trace. Tracey's eyes shone like tins of golden syrup. The cop's mouth hung open. She fingered her pepper spray, everything turning red, then blue, red, blue, red, blue. "I'm gonna require you to say your name and address into our breathalyzer here. Atta girl, nice and close, that's it." The machine responded red, alcohol positive. "Miss, I'll now require you to accompany me to the station for a full blood alcohol test. Step out of the car, please." Blood alcohol echoed between my ears. The thing that keeps you alive is the thing that kills you, is the thing that keeps you alive. Tracey, I thought, if she pings you for driving shit-faced, she's going to start asking all sorts of questions, and I probably won't see you for... A blood alcohol test isn't required. Bathed in blue, the cop blinked. Her face turned red, then blue again, as if her mind was wrestling. You could have balanced a stick between the eyes of Tracey and the cop and it wouldn't have moved. The damn pig was hypnotised. I wrote about it in a letter to my boy the next day, sipping coffee with a load of rum in it, hands quivering. And then I screwed the letter up. I bought him a postcard with wallabies on it instead. "I'm not supposed to see you," I wrote in increasingly tiny letters in the margins of the card just before I ran out of space. "But look, my special friend really wants to see you. She doesn't know I'm writing to you. Wallace, mate, Auntie Tracey's her name. You'd like her. I added in the last inch of the postcard. And then I scribbled out the bit that said, "You'd like her." 5. Christchurch. $3 card. Botanic Gardens. Happy toddlers kicking water in wading pool. Scorching summer. 2 parents for every child. We shivered through June. The year had gone cold. It was dark more often than it was light now. Big city. Avenues. Apartment towers. Hagley Park horizon. Endless hectares. A lot of strays, a lot of drunks. Tracey had been saying that her feeds were too stale. They weren't young enough. "Mama needs some veal," she went, licking her lips as we hovered at the lights, looking at free-range food. "Know how I can meet some kiddios?" What kind of kiddios, Trace?" "Ones that won't be missed." I thought of Wally chucking basketballs at his hoop. I thought of Wally riding his BMX in circles at the cul-de-sac. "Oh, nah," I told her. "I don't know any youngsters, eh?" Lying through her teeth. I compensated by bringing her 7 under 25s 7 nights in a row, just so long as she stayed away from kids. The blood was reasonably young. I scored Tracey a rugby stud on crutches, a skinny boy soldier still wearing his fatigues, a porcelain police cadet, and under the pulsing unst of the clubs on Oxford Terrace where I prowled, I landed one of the youngest yet, an 18-looking activist girl who had strayed from some rainforest fundraiser. I coaxed her into a stolen station wagon, and I drove the woozy hippie home. Well, didn't drive her to the home she was expecting. I parked in the shadow of the museum-sized mansion that we rented off Gloucester Street, ancient, chilly and cavernous. A fireplace inside the entrance, high ceilings, everything wooden, the floors, the walls, the creaking handrails. There was a cast-iron bathtub with claw feet in the upstairs bathroom. It was wide enough for Tracey to sleep in, covered in graveyard dirt, her hands folded on her tummy, her eyes closed. Well, closed until she smelled the feast that I had brought home. And then her eyes went wide and they went bright. I guided the happy girl upstairs, promising her a glass of water and a couch to crash on. I shoved her into the bathroom and I held the door with my big steel arms. Tracey rose out of the bathtub, drifted like a kite, dripping dirt and dead flies. She extended her claws, dropped, bit the neck and fed. A puddle seeped under the door, indigo blue in the moonlight. August, I told Tracey that we were done drinking people. I caught Tracey during what we call in AA a moment of clarity. She was blitzed on acid, but hey, she agreed. Tracey doubled down on sucking bottles and pipes in my neck, but she didn't touch any civilians for 13 straight days. We had been taught in 12-step that the reason we drink is we're unhappy, and we're trying to reclaim some of our hours on earth by imbibing happiness, but that was not working, bro. It had been ages since we felt happy. All we did was we raced a giant wave of trouble, a wave that was starting to tower over us, threatening a tsunami. And there was not long left. On a dewy Sunday morning, while watching the whales from Kaikoura, Tracey tipped forward off the park bench and crumpled on the curb. I raced her to hospital. They ran blood test and endoscopy. They pumped fluids in her to keep her alive. There was good in her under the rot. Tracey had cirrhosis of the liver, hepatitis C, as well as something called hemochromatosis. The specialist reckoned it was the kind of elevated iron levels that you would get if your entire diet was red meat. "You gotta vary what you eat, honey," she told Trace, stroking Tracey's forehead. "It'll kill you eventually. You need way better blood." The words cut the room in half. The doctor meant one thing. Tracey heard another. "You need way better blood." Behind the hospital was a razor-wired courtyard protecting an incinerator and dumpsters. Tracey sneaked us in around 3 a.m., wrapping around me, floating us up towards the moon before coming down inside the fence. Within the dumpsters were needles, pus-soaked padding, miles of plastic tubes, sharps disposal tubs, bags of fluid light and dark. Tracey dived into the feast, biting open bags of blood, checking the dates to make sure they were young and fresh enough, guzzling kid blood until her chin was ribboned, sticky red, plastic in her teeth, devouring 5 bags in quick succession and then slumming down to sip the 6th, moaning in bliss, her gold coin eyes fixed on me like they were saying, "I know you can get us more." 6. South Canterbury, Ashburton Domain. A mum and a dad in a meadow of September daffodils. A boy on his dad's shoulders. 10:01 p.m. A maze of redwood trunks, pillars holding up the winter moon. A girl in a tartan kilt, Ashburton College tie and blazer, swanning out of Countdown Supermarket with a box of discounted end-of-day Canterbury donuts, crossing the road to cut through the domain to get home. Tracey dropped from a tree branch, smashed the girl's head into the hard stone edge of a frozen bird bath 10 times until her neck was soft, and then she sucked. 100 days later, I discarded the girl's student ID into a roadside sewer. It felt wrong. I rolled up my sleeve and I reached all the way in, my brow smushed against the frigid sewer slime, and I pulled it back out. I wiped clean the little photo of her freckled face. Deeper in the month, deeper south, some meaningless weeknight lost in time. Red lights ahead. The only other car in the world. We nudged it off the icy highway until it went up the embankment and flipped. Its wheels spun as useless as an upturned tortoise. Tracey hovered above the car, unhurt by the hot engine. She stuck her head in the passenger window upside down. She coaxed the shivering Asian man out. I held a Molotov and a lighter, ready to incinerate the evidence while Tracey squeezed him in a chokehold till his eyes popped. She suckled for a second before noticing a Dora the Explorer doll in the upside-down rubble of the car's back seat. There was a booster seat among the suit jacket and the papers in the spilled briefcase, and stitched into the seat was a tiny flag with 4 elements on it, the kind that you see at Korean restaurants. Plus there was a little girl clutched in the seat, huffing with terror, looking 6 years old. Wally's age. Tracey leaped at the girl. I yanked her out of the car window by the ankles, tossed her onto the grass. She scrabbled back. She felt like she was made of cast iron in my hands, heavy as a black hole, quick and slippery, bumping me off. I moved in front of her, ready for a rugby tackle, and the nimble little girl grinned, enjoying the challenge. She stepped up into the air and began floating over me towards the far side of the car, towards her feed. I doubled down. I summoned big Adam muscle from my back and my hams and my shoulders, ripped her out of the night sky, slammed her into the embankment. I wrapped my pythons around her shoulders, squeezed her hard so that she wouldn't float away. Tracey struggled and clawed and gnashed, and I had to throw her a couple of meters away. She landed awkwardly, whirled around like a tossed cat, and gave me a hateful look, face full of fangs, a face warning me what would happen if I got in her way a second time. The glow in her eyes dimmed, and then they became white again, as I talked Tracey back into our vehicle. Because headlights were approaching. We had a 10-second window to get the fuck away. Tracey fought and argued for 9 of those seconds. She stared hungrily at the little Korean girl as we drove off. Tracey had taken blood bags back to our motel room in Timaru. By the end of the week, they were no good to consume, she reckoned, hurling the bags to splatter against the wall, roaring that her drink wasn't fresh enough, sobbing and sucking her thumb while I sang old-school lullabies to try and chill her the fuck out. After she fell asleep, I borrowed $200 from her handbag. I crept out to a 24/7 Kmart. I filled a care package of presents for my boy's birthday. Golden State Warriors pyjamas, a Steph Curry poster, lollipops. "I'll come visit if your mum lets me," I wrote on his card when I crept back into the motel, stashing the presents in the cleaning cupboard. There was no noise from Tracey's room. She was probably in the bathtub, dozing in dirt. I wrote the postcard in the lounge, feeling free. But like my freedom was, kind of ringed with an electric fence. Like I was going to get in trouble any minute. There was dirt under my foot. A worm on the motel carpet for some reason. But I thought it was nice to have some silent, non-Tracey time for once. I'm trying to be good, Wal. It's more than getting off the booze, man. There's a whole lot of stuff I want to do better. I'm just trying to find a way forward, I wrote to him. And then I felt a patter on my shoulder. A leak in the ceiling. What the fuck? I picked it off. A grain of rice. Yellow. It was wriggling. A maggot. I flicked it away. Where are you sending those things? Jesus Christ! I searched the room. Tracey wasn't behind me. She wasn't to the side. She wasn't behind the curtain. There was drizzle on my scalp. Fragments of dirt falling. I found her, hugging the ceiling like a flying squirrel. What do you mean, where? Where does he live? Give me the address. I know you have a child for me. She stared down at the postcard, zooming in with her bat eyes on what I had written. And then she lunged. We rolled around the motel, crushing the glass coffee table, putting a hole in the TV. Tracey, flitting from wall to wall like a locust. Me, dizzy, trying to get a focus on her and hold her so that I could smack her into submission. We battled until we fell into the kitchen, me trying to crush Tracey with my heavy arms. Trace, nipping and scratching and zipping through the air. She had me against the wall, and I protected my eyes for a moment when my groping right hand landed on a barbecue fork. I stuck it through her shoulder, pinned her to the wooden cupboard. Tracey kicked me into the dining room. I wiped out the table and chairs, landing in a heavy heap, panting, picking screws and splinters out of my back. As I was about to get up, Tracey locked eyes with me. She clawed into my brain and, trying to get the fork out of her arm, she gave a satisfied smirk. Her voice was inside my skull. "He's mine, you fat fuck. You're a delicious boy." She wriggled free, pulling the cupboard door off, shaking her shoulders till the fork fell out and the cupboard door dropped off her back. Before I could grab the keys off the breakfast bar and frantically drive to catch up and save my son, Tracey marched to the door, sprinted across the car park, and launched into the night sky. 7. The Deep South. I put the speedo up to 140, 150 as I closed the gap between me and my family, agonising over how long it might take Tracey to glide the 300 k's across Otago and Southland and swoop on my boy. She was probably only an hour or two behind me. Tracey had no idea where Wally lived, but she could smell. 35 Otaramika Street, just before the milk factory, second left after the Southern Pride Dairy, the end of the cul-de-sac. I hit the letterbox, bent it under the bumper, and left the engine running. I crossed the lawn in one stride. Excruciating stomach cramp. It could have folded me in half like a stapler, but I barely noticed any of it. I just needed to see if Tracey had gotten here before me. My son's window. The window that he used to press himself against when he should have been napping because he wanted to see his old man when he used to get home at 5:09 every evening. His precious name, Wallace in block. Wooden letters, the E backwards and upside down. Oh, bless you, Wally! I went, tapping his window. The frosty night was agony. Ice crystals pricked the sleeves of my hoodie and my collar. "Dude, wake up! We got to get you out!" The sleepy boy parted the curtains, picking his eyes. The Golden State Warriors pyjamas that I'd paid Carla to buy him. The waft of that eucalyptus fabric softener that she's always used. He clocked that it was Daddy outside, and he smiled, letting the room light his face. My heart cringed. "Don't wake Mama, Kate. Well, can you just open the window up for me?" I checked over my shoulder. "I don't think we've got much time, man. She's coming." "Who's coming, Dad?" "Auntie Trace, man. Auntie Trace." Bounding across gorse and gates, leaping 30 metres to clear ditches and mud lakes and fences and hay bales under the moon, and the 5-story vats of milk at the Fonterra factory, sprinting and long jumping and sailing over 100 houses, stopping every 30 k's, snuffling the air. I stood on the outdoor heat pump unit and hauled my blubber up onto the window frame and tipped into the room, landing heavily, bumping little rectangles off the wall. There were postcards, 34 of them. Every single one, Wally had saved. I wrapped my fat arms and tits around my boy, squeezing his head and warm flesh, wincing with relief, brushing spare splinters out of my flesh. I had to get him out. "Wallace Cunningham, open this instant." At the window, it was her. "Wally, open up. It's Auntie Tracey." The moon woman hovered like a helium balloon, awaiting her invitation. Her tongue was hanging out, her chest soaked with drool, her eyes twinkling like little bonfires. Wally waved her in. Tracey floated into the room, landing in front of my boy. I didn't want my lungs torn out. I didn't want my baby bitten. I couldn't fight her here, not with those claws. My boy's soft throat. Every minute that we could delay this thing mattered. We took short, procrastinating steps down the hall. The final door was the garage. She stepped in and I sealed it behind us. There was a concrete bunker, a rectangle of blue glow around the automatic garage door. A good door too, expensive, unstoppable, bolted to the ceiling with steel rails so strong that I used to do pull-ups on them. Heirloom furniture clogging the garage, toolboxes, surfboards, shoes, bicycles, the portable basketball hoop and stand, and a Toyota that I'd never seen, and boxes of magazines and Christmas gift wrap. Inside the garage, we caught our breath. I took a final look at my son. Lakers pajamas, new freckles on his nose that I'd never seen before, his hair perfectly puffy, too cute to cut. "I'm sleepy, Dad." I wrapped my shoulders around my boy for the last time and inhaled him. Apple shampoo. A tiny ear stud. "Get out of the way, fat fuck." Her teeth inside my ears. Well, Auntie Tracey, she's just gonna give you a little kiss, that's all." I gulped. "She really likes kids." Wallace turned to face her, looking hopeful. I retreated into the shadows, stumbling on rugby balls, squeezing the portable basketball stand for support, kicking away a skipping rope I bought Wally 3 Christmases ago. Tracey crouched in front of my mesmerised son, whose pyjama bottoms were turning dark as piss mapped his legs. Her cheeks began to spread, splitting, as the skin bunched up around her ears, exposing 98 teeth, 2 finger-long needles, and a tongue that slapped Wally's throat, and I pushed over the basketball hoop, and it caught her around the neck with the metal rim, burying her in net. She clawed the net. She got her fingers stuck. The heavy steel rim bumped Wally and he screamed and buried himself under a tarpaulin. Tracey was 3 seconds away from stooping and shaking out of the net, and within 2 seconds I had the skipping rope coiled around her neck, and then a second loop. Tracey seized the skipping rope and shot me with yellow eyes. I closed my eyelids though, shaking my head. "Sorry, Trace, we're not doing this." I tossed one skipping rope handle over the roller chain of the garage door, caught it, felt the beast in the net struggle and kick as I crossed the floor. I pushed the red button, door open. I tipped backwards. The aluminium slid up my back as the garage door yawned, tumbling me out into the driveway, the biting blue morning. 141 kilos, that was me. Top 1% heaviest cunts in the South Island. I put my back on the driveway and watched the garage door slide away 10 inches per second. As I yanked my end of the skipping rope, the door pulled the other way. Tracey was in the middle. Well, her head was in the middle. Not that the head stayed for long. Tracey was a broken doll now, her neck pinched off like a zit. Her collar fountained black blood, droplets peppering my track pants as she staggered towards me, headless and blind. The skipping rope, free, lay limply on my crotch. Its other end was buried in a tangle of rim and backboard and net and blood-soaked hair. Inside the garage was the hallway door, my son clutching his mum's hand. Carla, her mouth like a trout. That mouth chewing at words which just wouldn't come. I said to him, Wally man, I'll be back soon, dude, I swear, once a month, bro, every month, Wallace, just go. I looked for something to jam Tracey's head into, knocking over a barbecue, pricking my hands on a dartboard. I found a cat carrier, grabbed a hank of Tracey's hair, swung her head inside the cage and took that cage by the handle, tossed it onto the passenger seat and took the body away too, dragging the body out onto a slipway of black blood and crammed it into the boot of the Range Rover. I blazed up through the top of Invis, Anderson Park, Makarewa, veering off Highway 98 to take the 6th north through Winton, through Nightcaps, the car, finally asking for a break at the start of the mountains, Fiordland. I gassed up under the mountains at Ojai and breathed for the first time in hours. The sky was pink now, dawn creeping round the cliffs. You're in so much shit, Adam. Electrocuted with fright, I smashed against my driver door. I got out of the car and I ran into the tussock and crouched. I fingered my phone, caught my breath, crept back to the car. The cage was talking to me. Well, the mouth inside it was. The head. I knew you didn't have the guts. Keep going, fatso. There's a campground up ahead at Tuatapere. There's bound to be people there, 'cause I need a drink. So yeah, Struth, I mean, cheers for having me at your meeting. I need a beer after all that. Well, I mean, no disrespect or nothing. You asked me to share my story, and that's all of it. Well, almost all. There's one part I've been circling around to. 'Cause I couldn't leave my son alone, not in that garage, not in that house, not in a world where Tracey might find a way back to him. So, before I gapped it from the garage, Tracey's headless body was slipping in black blood. All she had left for her head was a snapped-off nub of jagged spine sticking out with a couple of drinking straw arteries squirting blood out. I paused just a moment then. I paused before dragging her body out to the car, before the nosy neighbours pulled back the curtains, and I put my lips on top of her spine, and I sucked a good bellyful of her down me. Hey, what can I say? I'm a drinker. It's hard to admit the things that we put inside ourselves sometimes, eh? It's shameful, but I appreciate you guys being good listeners. Look, I just wanted more daddy-son years. I wanted 150 of them if I could have them, hopefully. Maybe even more. Depends how much daddy drinks. Because you got to be there for your son, don't you? What better gift could you get a kid than the gift of always being around for him? A daddy who will always be around for his son. Maybe a century, maybe 2. And I'll be giving him a taste when he's ready as well. Should be able to feed him a bit of a supplement every 4 weeks or so when I fly into town. Grow him up big and strong, just like his dad.